So there's been this weird pattern with these computer Bond games. There's a movie tie-in release followed by a return to an older film for the next game. This is now the third time it's happened. Goldfinger followed A View to a Kill, Live and Let Die followed The Living Daylights, and now it's time to return to The Spy Who Loved Me following License to Kill. This pattern does end here, however, as there won't be another Bond film release until 1995, and there isn't a return to an older film until 2005's From Russia with Love. License to Kill was fairly well received at the time, and then it appeared as if Domark was going back to the route of Live and Let Die for their next entry by releasing a vehicle-only game. Interestingly enough, while Timothy Dalton's final Bond film was 1989's License to Kill, he would actually remain being 007 up until 1994, just without a film release. He was supposed to be Bond in GoldenEye, but there were some negotiation issues, and ultimately Pierce Brosnan got a second chance to take over. But for their 1990 release of The Spy Who Loved Me, it was once again time to return to the Roger Moore era in 1977, and it would be the last time Moore's Bond was used in a video game form until 2012's 007 Legends. If you've been with me since part 1, and major props and appreciations to you if you have, you'll remember that James Bond 007 actually had a level based on The Spy Who Loved Me, and that game was also a vehicle-only game. We can see how this compares and how far they've come in gameplay and in graphics in the last 7 years. So, this is a remake, I guess? Alright, maybe not. The interesting thing about The Spy Who Loved Me is that it was not only Ian Fleming's 10th Bond novel, but it was also the 10th Bond film. I think this is just coincidence, but I'm not positive on that. Ian Fleming's novel version of The Spy Who Loved Me was released in 1962, just half a year before Bond's film debut of Dr. No. The Spy Who Loved Me is a very unique story for Fleming, as it is told through the perspective of a new character named Vivian Michael, not James Bond. Bond is only a secondary character and only appears in the latter third of the novel. But The Spy Who Loved Me in film form, unfortunately for box office sales, was released 2 months after Star Wars was. Star Wars absolutely dominated the box office that year, and The Spy Who Loved Me was actually the 8th highest grossing film of the year. There are many who consider this to be Moore's best, though, and I tend to agree with that. It's my personal favorite from his tenure. After Sir Roger Moore passed away in 2017, a local theater decided to show Moore's first 3 films, and you better believe I went to The Spy Who Loved Me showing. It ended up being the 8th highest grossing Bond film of the series as well, adjusted for inflation, and only Moonraker made more money for the Moore era. The Spy Who Loved Me stars Barbara Bach, Kurt Jurgens, and Richard Kiel alongside Moore, and is typically known for 2 aspects that are staples to the Bond franchise. Jaws, the towering baddie with pointed steel teeth with little to say, as portrayed by Richard Kiel, and the Lotus Esprit, the second most infamous Bond car brand, only behind the Aston Martin. The story deals with a very rich megalomaniac named Karl Stromberg plotting to destroy the world and make his own underwater utopia. It's up to Bond and Anya Amasova, the beautiful Russian agent who Bond is forced to work with to stop Stromberg and his henchman Jaws. But the Lotus Esprit is what mattered most for making this new game. This vehicle can seamlessly drive on land and then can convert into a submarine with just the press of a button. It's one of the more infamous Q gadgets, and Domark figured it would be great to be used in a video game. 1990 would continue to be a big year for video games, with some legendary releases like Super Mario Bros. 3 and Final Fantasy in the United States, and the Super Famicom in Japan, which would later become the Super Nintendo in the US. As far as computer gaming, 1990 would mark the end of production for the ZX Spectrum. But then there was The Spy Who Loved Me, which was released for the same usual computer models like the Amstrad CPC, Commodore 64, DOS, and ZX Spectrum, and the usual 2 16-bit models of the Amiga and Atari ST. Nothing new for these Domark Bond games. Let's check out the back of the box, an advertisement actually. James Bond returns in a classic action-packed race against time to save the world from the crazed and power-mad Karl Stromberg. Use your skills to end the threat of global domination as you seek to outwit Stromberg's mercenaries and prevent a nuclear war between East and West. Exhilarating chase sequences on land and under the sea involve Q's specially modified Lotus, souped up and armed to the teeth. With one-on-one arcade-style shootouts, multi-level action, and top-secret codes to crack, this is the fastest-paced and most exciting Bond thriller to date. Don't miss out on The Spy Who Loved Me, a programming tour de force. So, okay, right off the bat, it sounds like an improvement over Live and Let Die, since Q actually did supply Bond with the Lotus in the film. Also, I mean, every ad has said this is the most exciting adventure yet, so we'll just see about that. And apparently the higher quality computers are really starting to be favored over the classic ones, as there are 6 levels on the Amiga and Atari ST versions, as opposed to only 3 levels on the older ones. But keeping in tradition, let's at least check out how the Commodore 64 version plays out. So the game just throws you into the mix with little introduction. As predicted, you are immediately controlling the Lotus Esprit on land and must navigate a winding path to reach the end without falling into the water. In the film, the car can go directly in the water and then transform into a sub, so this doesn't really make sense, but okay. Along the way, there are obstacles to avoid, like traffic cones, oil slicks, some sort of blue patches that slow you down, and people that net you minus 50 points per murder. I didn't even look at my points, so in the grand scheme of things, minus 50 points doesn't really matter, and one innocent life is lost. The Lotus controls fine, but there's still one glaring problem, if you can see here. To go at a normal fast speed, the Lotus is so close to the top of the screen that you're given little time to react to oncoming obstacles. This isn't as much of a problem as it is in the next part, though. You eventually come to a dock, and then you're instantly driving a boat? I was having horrible flashbacks of Live and Let Die at this point, but this is better, I guess? The lane is now much wider since it's on water, but oh, this one is so much more frustrating. I died so many times by running into docks because I can't see what's in front of me. The worst is when you've come so far and then a dock that you can't see juts out into an L shape, and the only way to go is to Explosion Town. But be prepared to die until you memorize the course, because running into docks starts you back at the beginning of the boat level. The next level involves a return to the streets on land, in which you must collect 75 Q tokens in order to drive into the Q truck to buy submarine capabilities and then dive into the water. If you don't know this ahead of time, you'd have no clue what to do here, and the level would just go on and on. Finally, at least as far as I played into this game, is the underwater level. I tried everything I could, but I could not figure out how to use any of my weapons. As it has been with these games, the joystick only has one button, and pressing the button only seems to pause the game. As far as I'm concerned, though, I'm done with this game. I feel like I'm entering a Domark fatigue phase because I'm just not enjoying any of these games lately. It's really not fun. I don't think it's as offensive as Live and Let Die was, but it's still a poor driving game. The controls are average, but with the Lotus being so far at the top of the screen, it honestly kills the whole game entirely. I don't want to spend time memorizing these courses, and ultimately I couldn't get behind this one at all. I say Live and Let Die is still worse, but this one is not far behind. These Bond driving games on old school computers do not translate well. This one is for collectors only. Well, it has been pretty dull for these Bond games lately, I gotta say. So far, nothing has topped the Living Daylights in my opinion, and even that wasn't even a great game. As far as this retrospective goes, we are nearing the end of the computer game era. In fact, there's only one more to go until we enter the console/handheld era. There will eventually be some released on computers as well, but only secondary to its corresponding console. But next time, we have a bit of a weird one. 1990 also saw the release of a game by a French developer called Operation Stealth, but when being adapted to the United States market, they decided to change the protagonist's name from John Glames to James Bond, and capitalize on the brand. But really though, once again, thank you all for watching these and being along with me on my journey. The classic computer age will be coming to an end next time, and please be sure to like this and subscribe to my channel. Any assistance will greatly help me out in the long run. It's been more fun talking about these than actually playing most of them, however. Let's see if that changes soon. James Bond will return in James Bond 007: The Stealth Affair.